When we're thinking about a win-win negotiation, what we're looking for this to lead to is stronger relationships. So that customers are seeing us as a partner. We're not an adversary. We're not someone that they're fighting against. It's someone that they're working with, which is making sure that we have set out how we're going to do that. We're going to be getting better outcomes because the agreement is made so it works for both sides. So it's more sustainable. It can last longer.
You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a modern approach to winning business, the application of virtual selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. Why not take our free collaborative selling scorecard to see how your sales approach suits today's environment? You'll find a link in the show notes.
And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. Another solo because it's another one in the mini-series breaking down the ethical model. Now, you might have listened to some of these already. If you haven't, go back and listen to them, or listen to this, which is the A of ethical, which is adaptive negotiation. So a critical skill for most salespeople is the ability to negotiate. And there's a point that I want to start on, which is that negotiation doesn't have to be a battle. In fact, the best negotiators aren't ones who win at all cost. They're ones who adapt, collaborate, and create win-win outcomes for both sides. So what we're going to do is unpack what adaptive negotiation means, how to balance flexibility with some principles, and how you can negotiate ethically while you're still achieving those goals. So what specifically do we mean by adaptive negotiation? Okay, so this is about understanding that every negotiation is unique. Instead of sticking rigidly to a script, what adaptive negotiation allows you to do is to adjust your approach based on the situation, the customer, the desired outcomes, and all without compromising your integrity. So there's three main elements to it, and the first of those is flexibility. So this is recognizing that compromise is often necessary to reach agreement. And of course, when we're negotiating, we want to get to a point of agreement. That's why we're doing it. Certainly in a commercial discussion. Crisis negotiations are a little bit different. However, we're talking about commercial negotiations here. And so the second key part is about ethics. So it's maintaining honesty and fairness throughout the process. And the third, which is linked to that, is that we have this win-win thinking. We're focusing on outcomes that benefit both parties, not just yourself. So the goal isn't to beat the customer, it's to collaborate, align, move forward together. That's what ethical selling is all about. We want to agree, we want to work together, we want to be part of each other's success. And so that's why the style in which we negotiate becomes adaptive. The problem with aggressive win-lose negotiation is often that even though you might get the deal, you might lose the relationship. So the customer, if they feel pressured, shortchanged, it can damage trust, it can create resentment. You are running the risk that someone might never want to work with you again. Or if they do, only because they have to, and this in turn is going to cause problems. So when we're thinking about a win-win negotiation, what we're looking for this to lead to is stronger relationships. So that customers are seeing us as a partner. We're not an adversary. We're not someone that they're fighting against. It's someone that they're working with, which is making sure that we have set out how we're going to do that. We're going to be getting better outcomes because the agreement is made so it works for both sides. So it's more sustainable. It can last longer. We're going to keep that moving forward, keep it working. Also means we're likely to get repeat business and referrals. If we're saying that people buy from those they trust, Well, ethical negotiation is going to build trust. It's actually good for business in the longer run. That's what we're trying to do. That's why these win-win outcomes do matter. So what can we do? How can we adapt the negotiation style to stay ethical and effective? Okay, so again, I'll talk you through a bit of a framework that we can use here. First up is to prepare thoroughly. So preparation has always been key to good negotiation, and no difference if we're looking to be adaptive in style. So this is about understanding, what are the customer's goals? What are the customer's challenges? What are the customer's priorities? Understand what our own are. So think of it from both sides. And then think about, where have we got flexibility? What are things that we can use to trade? What can we swap? Might be terms of price, might be terms, it might be the scope of the solution. What are the variables, the tradables, the things that we can adjust, the things that we can't? And be clear on our walkaway point. Yeah, that's when the deal doesn't make any sense for us any longer, where it is better for us to go and do something else. I sometimes call this the BATNA, the best alternative to negotiated agreement. The best alternative is just not to agree. Okay, walk away. Now, there might be another way of doing something. It could take us to a different type of solution, but we've got to be very key and clear on that so that we don't end up catching a cold. Then what we can do is we listen and understand. Tapping into our sales skills. Yeah. Listening, asking questions like, what are the concerns that you have here? What would a successful agreement look like from your perspective? We're trying to understand their needs so that we can position the offer as a solution, not a compromise. Now, ideally, we've done that already. That's the point of selling, collaborative selling, an ethical selling approach, getting to this position where we're making a proposal that we know is likely to be accepted. But as we're getting to grips with the terms of that agreement and how that's going to just balance out, we can just use those same skills. And then we move into offering options as opposed to ultimatums. So rigid negotiation can kill deals when people take a position. Yeah, rather than a kind of a take it or leave it type approach, we want to offer choices. Yeah, we can adjust the scope to meet the budget. We can keep the full solution. We can change the payment plan. That's what we're looking to do. We want customers to feel in control and create that space so that we continue to collaborate. Big part of ethical selling is about collaboration. And just because we're moving to negotiation part doesn't mean that we should be losing sight of that. And then as we negotiate on value rather than price. So if customers pushing back on cost, which invariably happens, bring the conversation back to value. So for example, we might say something like, look, I understand the budget concern, but let's look at the impact. This is going to save you 50 hours a month if you were going to do this manually. So when customers see the value, that's when the price objections can start to dissipate. Our job is to keep bringing that back, resurfacing it, rather than getting fixated in on the cost, on the number. And we want to stay calm, want to stay flexible. Negotiations can get tense. People can get quite excited. They can get quite uptight. But if we can control emotions, if we can stay calm, can listen actively, can adapt our approach so that we're keeping the conversation moving, keeping it productive. Flexibility isn't giving everything away. That's not what we're saying here. Flexibility is finding the best solution for both sides and being creative and looking to be able to adapt to work out what that is. So I got involved in a number of negotiations, selling training, you can probably imagine, talking to customers who often push back on price. They'll look at what we quote, what we say. But what I won't want to do is panic or discount. Sales trainer discounts isn't a great look anyway, is it? But by asking questions, we can understand why people are pushing back, what's actually going on. And often the issue isn't really price. It's sometimes to do with timing a budget. And so it's then easy to adapt the approach. Yeah, we can offer phased rollout. That good training looks like phased in different parts. Yeah, we can spread cost. Yeah, or we can align it to value, or we can align it to value and saying, look, the training is based on driving real life sales activity. This will be worth this much new business as we push it through. Compare it to what we're actually going to charge. So when we do that, people will appreciate flexibility. They help and being helped to see the value. So yeah, it's not about walking away. We can move forward because both sides are happy with the agreement. Yeah. So what we're doing, it's not about giving up. It's not about fighting, but it's working out what's the right solution. What does it look like? How does it work for all parties? So if you listen to some of these, you know that we're kind of I'm putting a few tips in at the end of, as we near the end of the each episode. So 5 tips. First up is prepare and know your limits. Know what you must have. Know walkaway points before you even get involved in the conversation. We want to be absolutely clear on that. And then focus on value, not just price. It sometimes feels like this is always the tip, but really that's what's core to successful selling today. Yeah, if we're just looking to try to haggle and get to a price, we're probably not doing a good job as an overall professional salesperson. So yeah, get the conversation to outcomes, return on investment, things which people are trying to achieve, and why they would want to pay to get to that position. Yeah. Be transparent. Again, is a bit of a consistent theme here, but transparent about trade-offs. If somebody wants a lower price, maybe we can do that, but it was going to have an impact on the scope, the delivery, the elements of the proposition that we're putting to them. Yeah, that's going to have an effect. So we can discuss that. We can say, look, if that is what people are happy with, then okay, we can perhaps make those shifts. Offer collaborative solutions. Collaborative selling, core to the way we work ethically. Keep thinking, how do we work on this together? We want to agree. Let's try to get to that point of agreement by keeping working on that solution so that it meets the needs of all parties, making sure we deliver on that value. As we've already mentioned, keep emotions in check. Stay calm, listen, try not to let the tension, the stress push you into bad decisions. A little word of advice, it's kind of negotiation is conversation, not confrontation. So as we move towards the end, in summary, adaptive negotiation is about balancing that flexibility with integrity. It's creating solutions that work for both sides while maintaining trust and delivering value. And as you know, if you've been listening to these, I'm always putting a little challenge in place. So the challenge for you is, in your next negotiation, prepare 3 options that you could offer the customer, options that are flexible but protect your value. Yeah, so you're still walking away with something that you are happy with, but it's putting options in front of the customer that they can make an informed decision. Back to one of the other elements of the ethical model. So think about that. 3 options if you're going to go into negotiation, because that's going to make you think about how to be creative and what are those elements of the option that you're going to be able to move around. When you negotiate with trust, flexibility, women mindset, you're not just closing deals, you're building partnerships that last. Now, that's a common theme among all the stuff we talk about with ethical selling. So yeah, thanks for tuning into this episode. In the next one, we'll talk about learning and growth. So that's why top salespeople never stop improving, and how you can stay relevant, resilient, and you can keep ahead of the competition. But if you enjoyed this one, as always, share it with colleagues, share it with the team, subscribe, leave a review, buy the book. All of this stuff's in the book in a lot more detail than these short episodes. But yeah, until next time, keep selling ethically.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please get in touch and hit subscribe. And remember, you can take the Collaborative Selling Scorecard for free to check out how your sales approach works in today's environment. You'll find it in the show notes.